Hello, welcome to our channel. These days, an alarming number of people live with the discomforts of gastritis, reflux, and heartburn on a daily basis. These conditions, often treated with drugs such as omeprazole, lansoprazole, and pepsin, are commonly administered to block the production of gastric acid. What many people don't realize is that while these drugs temporarily relieve the symptoms, long-term dependence can make the problem worse. It's a reality I've come to know firsthand, having been dependent on these drugs since I was 10 years old. Today, we're going to share a personal experience on a subject that affects many people: how I cured my gastritis, my journey of healing. If you, like me, have experienced years of discomfort due to gastritis, reflux, or heartburn, you know how frustrating it can be to rely on medications that only mask the symptoms. In this video, I'll tell you how I decided to change this worsening situation and explore natural alternatives that really work. Over the years, I realized that conventional treatments were not solving the cause of my gastritis, but only masking the symptoms. Like many other people, I believed that the solution lay in controlling stomach acid, without understanding that this acid plays a fundamental role in digestion. It's like trying to put out a fire by cutting off the oxygen supply. It may work for a while, but the real problem persists. This realization led me to question how my own body worked, and to look for alternatives that didn't rely on medication that was damaging my health in the long run. It was then that I began to study more about how the stomach works. I understood that it is not just a reservoir for food, but a real biochemical machine, where gastric acid, mucus, and gastric tissue work in harmony to protect and nourish the body. This new understanding was the starting point for my search for more natural and less invasive methods to treat my gastritis. By understanding that the stomach needs acid to function properly, I realized that the right approach would be to restore the body's natural balance, rather than simply suppressing the symptoms. Over time, I discovered that gastric acid, often treated as an enemy by those suffering from heartburn or gastritis, is actually a crucial ally in the digestive process. It not only breaks down the proteins I consume, transforming them into essential amino acids for my body, but also ensures that these nutrients are correctly absorbed by the intestine. When my stomach didn't produce enough acid, I noticed that digestion was compromised, leading to poor absorption of nutrients and eventually a series of health problems. Gastric acid also acts as a natural defense against bacteria and pathogens that we ingest with food. This barrier is essential for preventing infections and keeping my immune system strong. When I started to reduce the production of acid in my stomach by taking antacids, I noticed that my immunity was also compromised, opening the door to problems I had never faced before. This delicate balance between protection and digestion is fundamental to keeping my gastrointestinal system healthy. Interfering with the production of gastric acid, as I have done for years, also impacts the production of protective mucus in the stomach. This mucus is vital for protecting gastric tissue from acid, preventing injury and inflammation. Realizing that I was altering this natural balance was a wake-up call. By better understanding the importance of acid in my stomach, I began to look for ways to restore its natural functioning, rather than continuing to suppress its symptoms. It was this understanding that began to guide my changes in approach to treating gastritis. For many years, I relied on conventional treatments that promised to relieve my symptoms of gastritis, reflux, and heartburn. I took acid blockers religiously, believing them to be the ultimate solution. However, over time, I began to realize that although the symptoms were controlled, I wasn't really cured. My body depended on these drugs, and every time I tried to stop, the symptoms came back more intensely. It was a vicious cycle that made me question whether I was really addressing the root of the problem. Upon further research, I discovered that by cutting acid production in the stomach, these drugs raise the pH of gastric acid to alkaline levels. Although this temporarily eliminates the burning sensation, this practice directly interferes with the digestion and absorption of essential nutrients such as proteins, zinc, selenium, and vitamin D. Over time, I realized that this deficiency was impacting my health in ways I hadn't imagined. Conditions such as osteoporosis and thyroid dysfunction are just some of the serious consequences that can arise from poor digestion and absorption of nutrients. This realization led me to reevaluate my entire approach to treating my gastritis. I realized that by suppressing the symptom, I was ignoring the real cause of the problem. It was a moment of epiphany that completely changed my perspective on conventional treatments. Instead of simply putting out the fire, I needed to understand what was causing the fire in the first place. And so began my search for alternatives that would treat my body holistically, respecting its natural functioning. After realizing that conventional treatments weren't really addressing the cause of my gastritis, I decided to change my approach. Instead of continuing to suppress gastric acid, I started looking for ways to restore its natural production. That's how I started including lemon juice and apple cider vinegar in my daily diet. These two ingredients, known for their pH balancing properties, became my allies on the healing journey. The change was gradual, and at first I still felt some discomfort, as my stomach was used to relying on acid blockers. The introduction of lemon juice and apple cider vinegar was just the first step. Over time, I adjusted my diet to include more foods that favored the production of gastric acid. I began to notice small improvements, such as more efficient digestion and fewer episodes of heartburn. It was a journey of trial and error, where I had to listen to my body and understand how it responded to each change. The key was patience and persistence, trusting in the process that the body, when given the right conditions, knows how to heal itself. It was also during this period that I realized the importance of not only restoring acid production, but also protecting the gastric mucosa. My stomach needed time to adapt to these new conditions, and the initial discomfort was a sign that I was on the right track. With this new approach, I began to feel more connected to my body and to better understand its needs. The decision to restore my stomach's natural function is what really started to transform my digestive health. Gastric acid in my stomach, I realized that I also needed to find ways to protect and soothe my gastric mucosa. That's how I started exploring the world of teas, looking for options that offered anti-inflammatory and protective properties. Among the teas that became part of my routine, chamomile, ginger, and licorice stood out. Each played a unique role in my healing journey. Chamomile calmed my stomach, ginger helped with digestion, and licorice offered an extra layer of protection to the gastric mucosa. Chamomile tea, known for its calming properties, is widely used to relieve digestive discomfort. Studies suggest that chamomile has compounds such as apigenin and luteolin, which have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Gastroenterology showed that chamomile can help reduce gastric inflammation and relieve symptoms of dyspepsia. By including this tea in my routine, I began to notice a decrease in stomach irritation, which allowed me to continue with my dietary changes with less discomfort. Ginger, on the other hand, is a powerful natural digestive aid. Its anti-inflammatory and antiemetic properties are well documented in scientific literature. According to a study published in the World Journal of Gastroenterology, ginger can speed up gastric emptying and reduce the feeling of nausea often associated with gastritis. By consuming ginger tea regularly, I noticed that my digestion improved significantly and reflux episodes decreased. In addition, ginger also helps to relieve inflammation in the gastric mucosa, providing additional relief. Licorice tea was another great ally in my treatment. This tea contains glycyrrhizin, a compound that has been shown to increase the production of gastric mucus, protecting the stomach mucosa against acid. A study published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology found evidence that licorice extract can help reduce the symptoms of gastritis and prevent gastric ulcers. Drinking a cup of this tea, especially in times of crisis, has become a self-care ritual that has brought a lot of relief and protection to my stomach. By incorporating these teas into my routine, I realized that curing gastritis went far beyond simply balancing stomach acid. It was about creating an environment where my stomach could recover and function optimally again. With every cup, I felt like I was giving my body the resources it needed to regenerate. This combination of restoring gastric acid function and protecting the gastric mucosa with teas was fundamental to my recovery. Over time, as I incorporated changes into my diet and daily habits, I began to notice that my dependence on medication was decreasing. Little by little, I started spacing out the doses of the acid blockers I used to take daily. Initially, this reduction was accompanied by a certain fear, because for years I had believed that these drugs were essential to keeping my gastritis under control. However, as my body adjusted, I gained confidence and felt less need to resort to medication. It was a gradual process, where each small victory was a step towards my independence from medication. Instead of taking medication preventatively, I started using it only when I really needed it, and even then, less and less often. There were times when, after a heavy or particularly irritating meal, I could feel the symptoms coming on. But instead of immediately resorting to the medicine, I began to apply the natural practices I had learned, such as drinking teas or eating foods that balanced my stomach's pH. These natural alternatives proved to be effective, and gave me the reassurance that I could indeed live without the constant need for medication. This reduction in dependence on medication was one of the greatest achievements of my healing journey. Feeling that my body was regaining its ability to regulate itself was liberating. It wasn't an easy road, and there were challenges along the way, but the progress I made showed me that true healing doesn't come from a pill, but from a deep understanding of how our body works and what it really needs. Looking back, I can see that this decision to rely more on natural solutions than medicines was key to achieving the digestive health I have today. My journey to cure gastritis was a process of self-knowledge and reconnection with my body. For years, I had been conditioned to believe that the solution to my digestive problems lay in medication, but over time, I realized that suppressing the symptoms was not the same thing as treating the root cause. By adopting a more natural approach and focusing on restoring my body's balance, I was able to not only relieve the pain, but also improve my digestive health as a whole. By stopping relying exclusively on medication and starting to explore alternative methods, such as introducing foods that promote gastric acid production and using protective teas, I was able to rebalance my digestive system. This experience taught me that the human body has an incredible capacity for healing, provided it is given the support and conditions it needs. It was a journey of discovery, patience, and determination. But in the end, it was worth every step. I hope my story can serve as an inspiration to others facing similar challenges. If you are struggling with gastritis, reflux, or heartburn, know that it is possible to find a way beyond medication. Every body is unique, and what worked for me may not be exactly what will work for you. But I believe the key is to listen to your body and look for ways to restore its natural balance. My journey still continues, but I'm confident that I'm on the right path, and I hope you can find yours too. Leave a comment on what you found most interesting, or if you were already aware of any of these benefits. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to continue learning about healthcare. And if you're concerned about your diet, especially if you have diabetes, check out our video on 7 dangerous fish if you are diabetic. We are always bringing valuable information to help you live better. See you in the next video, and take care.